Hello and welcome once again to the stream. I'm Imran Gardner sitting in for Derek Ashong. You're watching the pre-show. The Real Deal on Al Jazeera English will start in about 5 minutes' time, but this is a good opportunity to give all our online viewers a bit of a taste as to what's ahead and to have a look at some of the other aspects in the online world. Ahmed's here, Natasha's here as well. Great to have both of you once again. Ahmed, let's look at some of the trends that we've seen online. The British Ministry of Defence sending a bit of a warning out to British citizens, I'd imagine, and servicemen particularly serving in places like Afghanistan.
Yes, so you know the old, I guess it's a saying, loose lips sink ships, is now being adopted.
Or loose tweets sink fleets.
Yeah. Fleets, you said that earlier, yes. So yeah, essentially, you know, here in the second graph on UPI, it's saying computers and the internet have spawned hacking into information systems by military and business adversaries and rivals. So they're saying that people can eavesdrop into social media conversations, chats, even your Facebook profile, and we've seen targeted phishing operations in several countries. So I think this is just, you know, it's odd that they would have to say it, but, you know, they're cautioning. Yeah, perhaps
I think they've had their own Wienergate or in their military or something's gone wrong because you don't just issue things like that. Oh, by the way, don't forget. Something's happened.
Well, I mean, even right here, frankly, in the related stories, it's no surprise. We saw the lulsec jokes and hacks. You know, a lot of people suggested that I think it was the census that lulsecs had hacked into the census in England. So,
well, it doesn't even need to be hackers. I mean, I remember I did a story a couple of years ago on South African nationals who may have been dual Israeli nationals, or they may have been South Africans who fought as mercenaries for Israel during the Gaza war. But these guys, in a gladiatorial way, posted pictures on Facebook about the war, about the invasion of Gaza, holding bombs, and with captions like "These are for the whores of Gaza" and the like. And these were all on Facebook. People stumbled onto them. And within a couple of days of the report, all of those 70-odd people who posted pictures had taken down their Facebook profile. So they'd obviously, they'd been a bit arrogant in posting their profiles. And somebody must have had a word with them. Do you think that there's an ongoing trend from states and governments, not just the British government now, warning people, hold on, you can have your social networking, but you're going to be jeopardizing our missions and our security?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a big security concern with that, but it's just a bigger issue of people still don't understand that social media, it's public. Anything you post on Facebook, anything you're posting on Twitter, any image you upload online is public. And no one really gets that still. So you have to issue out these statements telling people, like one of their campaigns is called "Think Before You ... which makes perfect sense. You know, like think before you upload that embarrassing picture of yourself at the party, or think before you write that status line criticizing your boss.
They're likening it to trying to protect in a barracks as you would on the front lines of a war. You'd protect the barrack. So it's now it's protecting the home front, I guess, on the cyber world. Because a lot of people, I think we were talking earlier, are suggesting that the next big, I guess, war is going to be a cyber war.
Yeah, Robert Gates saying that the next Pearl Harbor might be a cyber attack. NATO's talking about the fact that they need to crack down on any hackers. We've got the WikiLeaks phenomenon. So this is almost an entire theme for our generation.
It's true.
If you like. Ahmed, tell us about the internet infographics and how much can happen on the internet in 60 seconds.
Well, it's fascinating. I mean, anybody could assume that a lot does happen, but so many different things happen. Videos uploaded, people messages are sent. Just a couple things right here, as you can see in this infographic. It was done by Go Globe, a company in Dubai, to try and communicate what happens in 60 seconds on the web. So this is a new trend, people doing all sorts of things in 60 seconds, holding audio casts. But here, for example, you have 98,000 tweets in 60 seconds are tweeted, 650,000, so over 500,000 search queries on Google. Let me try and get this a bit bigger. And then even here, we have 695,000 plus Facebook status updates.
No truth to the rumor that 694,000 of them come from Al Jazeera's headquarters.
That is strictly a rumor that is circulating on Twitter. But it's interesting, like for me, frankly, 695,000 Facebook status updates and only 168, or rather, I guess that's much more. So still a lot more emails being sent than Facebook updates. So
it seems to be a living, breathing organism, Natasha.
It's fascinating. I mean, I find this astounding, the speed with which information is being transferred around the world. It's just, people credit social media with causing things. It doesn't cause anything, but it just rapidly moves something that we've started, be it revolts, be it sharing of information, be it news events. I mean, this is absolutely fascinating.
I would love to be able to see a demarcation made between the so-called, developed world and the developing world, because it would be interesting to see trends in different countries. Ahmed, presumably, whatever the bulk of the activity in those 60 seconds happening in the quote-unquote West, the United States, Canada, Europe, etc. However, what's undoubted is that you've got a massive growing movement in Africa, in Asia, and the like.
Yeah, and it's funny about being concise, and we talk about, at least our generation and kind of the younger generations even, speaking in fragments and 140 characters, and then we were talking about the tweet nedwa, limiting actual kind of convention or debate into 140 seconds, and then also just wanted to quickly highlight this, speaking of 60 seconds and what can happen in it. Sudanese thinker on Twitter, that's his handle, Amir Ahmed, he's Sudanese, he put this together. It's the future of Islam in the age of new media. So it's the world's shortest conference on Islam ever. 60 speakers, 60 seconds, 60 insightful minutes. So everyone trying to do things in a condensed form, whether that's revealing or not, I don't know.
Well, I mean, particularly in Asia, while in some regards we consider part of the developing world, technologically speaking, Asia's always at the forefront. Everybody's got a cell phone. Everybody's online. And so I think this has been a means. Social media, Twitter, Facebook have really been a means of connecting them with the Western world. It's fascinating.
Okay, Ahmed and Natasha, don't go anywhere. This is the pre-show. If you're watching us online, I hope you are. The TV show starts in just under 60 seconds, and we've got a packed show ahead. We've got Tunisia, and we're talking the ramifications of the revolution and a possible reversal of internet freedoms in Tunisia. And we're also talking about Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko's country. There have been some protests in the country, and he's been cracking down hard. All of that and more coming up in the stream. We'll see you on the other side of this. Hello, I'm Imran Garda, filling in once again for Derek Ashong, and you're in the stream, a social media community with its very own TV show. We're bringing you the stories that are ongoing, global, and sourced from social media. Today, blogging in Belarus, how social media is helping mobilize anti-government protesters, and trouble in Tunisia, fears of censorship after a court orders internet filtering. Now, as always, our digital producer, human but digital, Ahmed Shihabuddin is here tracking your feedback. And next to him is Natasha Fatah, a Canadian journalist, documentary producer and columnist. Natasha joins us for the second day running. Natasha, anything interesting that's caught your eye in the past 24 hours since you were last on the orange couch?
I'm sad to say the thing that's caught my attention is that Senator McCain is on the defensive because he believes illegal migrants cause wildfires. So for all the things you could blame illegal migrants for, wildfires is a bit of a stretch. But
maybe they're running too fast. I'll have to have a look at the story to give proper judgment. Now, what makes social media so powerful is the ability to follow what's being said about a story anywhere around the world and in real time. And the key to this is the Twitter hashtag. Here's some of them we're watching closely in the stream. Well, that's very useful because up until about a week ago, I thought hashtags had something to do with marijuana, but Ahmed explained it to me properly. Now, people in the Eastern European nation of Belarus are protesting against the economic crisis in their country. Consumer prices have risen by as much as 33% in the last 12 months alone, and essential items such as medicines are hard to find. Calls for protests are growing on social networking sites as the crisis deepens. But President Alexander Lukashenko has dismissed the internet as trash, saying he would, quote, whack, yes, that's right, whack online dissenters. Well, let's have a look to see if he has any fans on Facebook himself. He doesn't seem to be too much of a fan of the internet. This is Alexander Lukashenko, a fan page created for him. 808 people
Imran,
like this.
I just had a thought that those 800 people might be his employees.
Yeah, maybe.
He's walking around the office saying, why don't you like me? Why
Oh,
don't
no,
you like
but
me?
actually down here there's a guy called Martin Barrett who sees Lukashenko as defending
That's his PR guy.
the world against imperialism. And then, of course, let's have a look at Muammar Gaddafi. Here's his page. Just to put it into perspective, 5,960 people like Gaddafi's page, and 808 like Lukashenko's page. So, what does that say about him?
The hair and the mustache. See, he's got the double combo thing going on.
Well, so if you are a fan, you should go on to Alexander Lukashenko's page and like him. There you go. Now, I want to show you a video of a protest that took place very recently, about a week ago. And it was dubbed a peaceful protest, where people were protesting against the inflation in the country and, of course, their general discontent as to the lack of democracy. Let me play you this video and we'll talk a bit after that. The lack of democracy. Let me play you this video. Okay, so there's a little bit of sound there. People have called it a peaceful clapping protest. It was designed to be non-confrontational. Difficult to tell by these pictures, but probably at least hundreds, if not thousands, of people. And they were protesting on June the 15th. 240 people were detained after these protests in Minsk. You get the gist of it on the main street in Minsk. Let's get out of that one and get some analysis and talk to somebody who understands this a bit better. However, let me just quickly remind you as well of the crackdown that's been taking place. This is from June the 6th, and this article saying Belarus cracks down on internet protest movement. As you can see, that very Soviet-style cage in the courtroom where opposition activists and protesters, after being rounded up, are in a court session. And that's May the 26th, rather, this article from June the 6th. So there's a general cracking down, if you like, taking place in Belarus. Let's talk via Skype to Belarusian journalist Maria Sadovskaya, who covers international politics and youth movements in the region. Welcome to the stream, Maria. Great to have you on the program. It seems as if Alexander Lukashenko is not too much of a fan of people using the internet to air their grievances.
Well, first of all, he is very contradictory in what he thinks about them. On one hand, he says that he doesn't really know about those actions, like he learned about one of them like 3 days later, but he took the decision to lower the prices on petrol the same day. So on one hand, he shows ignorance. On the other hand, he says never allow such actions anymore. They're political, and if the police allows one more action like that, the main police chiefs will be fired.
Maria, give us some insight as to the amount of people that actually use the internet in Belarus. As far as I understand, over a third of the population use the internet, and 2/3 of them are young people. So there seems to be a growing activity of online use there.
Okay, first of all, a third of population, Belarus is 9.5 million, and a third of population have claimed that they have ever used internet, meaning they maybe switched to internet once in their life. Around 10% of them, meaning like 300,000 people, say that they use internet on broadband, and like half of these 3 million say that they use internet daily. This is the real usage of internet. And yes, Belarusian internet audience is the youngest in Eastern and Central Europe, and it's growing, but the level of access to internet is very often limited by speed or by price.
And Maria, you said that Lukashenko is contradictory, something that I'm trying to understand here when I'm trying to get a clear vision of what the grievances of those people taking to the streets are. We've seen those inflation figures, and I'm not contesting them in any way, but also looking at some UN figures and some figures from the CIA World Factbook. It says that Belarus only has 1% unemployment. It says that people in general have access to healthcare and education and buying basic goods. From that perspective, while perhaps autocratic, perhaps not very democratic, it seems as if Lukashenko is holding the country together. Is there not an inbuilt seeming contradiction there?
Well, the thing about statistics that you are quoting, that they're at best describing the situation 1, 2, or 3 years ago, especially the UN figures and CIA Factbook is updated only in some pieces with some new information. Mm-hmm. And what you're talking about might have been in place partially in 2008, for example, and 2009, when the government seemed to provide some liberalization in political sphere in exchange to economic stability and general very slight democratization of the country. However, since December 2010, and you don't have any real statistic data for this period, it's too short to say, there has been a political crackdown, and then since February we have currency crisis, and the devaluation of Belarusian ruble is more than 50% already, while the consumer prices for some goods like coffee or like shampoo or something like that have grown twice and 3 times more, not
Maria,
33%.
Natasha wants to come in there. Natasha?
Hi, Maria, I just want to jump in. Hello. I'm just wondering, so what is it that you and your community and these protesters want? What is the end goal?
First of all, I'm a journalist. Please, let's make it clear that I'm not an organizer of protests or or I'm not the person who represents.
Okay, fair enough. So what's the objective?
Maria.
Okay. Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So I'll try to answer Natasha's question. I think that currently, when economic situation was kind of part of a bargain for political stability, the young people, some of them took part in opposition rallies, but many of them thought, okay, we can go abroad, maybe we can buy some good Western goods, music, and so on. Right now, they see they have no political freedoms. They also have very limited economic possibilities. They can't buy any dollar in any currency exchange for several months, and they don't know what will happen with their prices for flats, stipends, education, and so on. So I would say that the combination of political restrictions and economic factors plus the development of internet makes more and more grassroots groups to just arouse and say that they are not satisfied.
Maria,
it's not a revolution, it's just advice.
Forgive me, I don't mean to cut you off there, but you brought up 2 interesting things. You brought up the economy, the internet, and the fact that people are protesting. So obviously, a lot of people on Twitter, we see that there's 17,000 people, I think you said, that are using Twitter in Belarus. So we have a tweet here saying that Lukashenko, the president, has called the internet trash, and he also wants to close the borders of Belarus for imports. He sees that as perhaps a solution. I'd love your thoughts on that, but before, I just want to share with our viewers and with you and see what you think about this. We saw that on June 13th, the website of his presidency was hacked. Now, what's the significance of this? We've seen this in various other countries, in Tunisia, and a lot of people are sharing with us various hashtags to follow this story, such as 2906, meaning there's a protest scheduled for the 29th of June at 7 o'clock, as you can see right here on my screen. So please just answer about the website and these hashtags and the importance of these tools.
Okay. Well, first of all, I don't think that these two things are connected. Belarus has one of the best trained programmers, internet specialists who work as offshore specialists for many world companies, including, Google and so on. So I'm sure we have enough hackers who can just, organize the attack. And it might not be connected with the movement, which gathers people in the street. As for the movement and hashtags, as far as I understand, because it's very grassroots and operated from different points in the country and outside the country, the idea is to train and to make young people go into the streets with a very peaceful protest, so that on 3rd of July, on the day of independence in Belarus, a big crowd of them would come and make an anti-governmental parade, because the government will make a military parade or something like that on that day. So as far as I understand right now, these are very first steps to see how many people will actually follow the social network's appeal and how much Twitter and other platforms are popular.
Maria, it is indeed a very interesting litmus test. Maria Sadovskaya, we are running out of time. The EU is imposing more sanctions. Lukashenko's been in power for 17 years. He's turned to the IMF and Russia for help. It's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out, and I hope we can get your contribution in the near future. Maria Sadovskaya,
hope
thanks
so
a lot.
Too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, there you have it. Now, you can go to our website, stream.aljazeera.com, for more details on the protests in Belarus and how demonstrators there are taking on Alexander Lukashenko. Stream.aljazeera.com is the website. Now, Ahmed's got some feedback on the tweet Nadwa.
Right.
There's been another one held today in Cairo and, of course, in the online world.
Right, exactly. So we talked about this, symposium or gathering where people can share their views on politics and society in Egypt in 140 seconds, mirroring the 140 character limit on Twitter. As you can see, Hashim Abdul Hamid today said a few hundred people showed up at the second one. Here's the photo right here. And lots of people say it seems to be a success. Even Zaki Hussein saying that so many people showed up, it needs to be held in Cairo Stadium. And this is actually a site that we're going to tweet out, which allows you to follow the entire conversation, which was being live tweeted in Arabic and English. And I find it really interesting because now what we're seeing, for the first time in a country where for decades you haven't been able to have civic engagement in the actual public and social life, it's transcending now and, coming from the Twitterverse and online, the virtual world, to reality. So much so that Mus'ab al-Shami is saying on January 25th, we activists were awestruck for a week, wondering where people had finally come from. So this tweet, Nadwa, is really trying to look at the origins of the revolution in order to understand the future.
Absolutely. I mean, that's crucial, and it's part of the discussion we were having yesterday about where Egypt is headed. And I think it's really important to remember that the people who started the revolution, the people who were there in Tahrir Square, what they want is the direction we need to make sure that Egypt goes.
Right, and it's so interesting. People who are involved in this are people like Arabawi, who we've had on the show, Hassam al-Hamlawi. He's a citizen journalist and activist. He's been summoned to speak on behalf of the Egyptian activists in front of the Ministry of Interior. One tweet I wanted to read out, even though you can follow all these in the tweet we'll send out, is that he was asked at the Tweet Nadwa event when he felt the most helpless in his entire career, so to speak, as an activist, and he responded, the moment Baghdad fell. So clearly people are drawing parallels to other countries and other issues facing the Arab world in general. And so if you have any stories you want to share with us, we want to help you, and you can help us put together stories using the same tool we use. It's called Storify, and it pulls together elements such as videos, photos, and audio from across social media. So put together a story for us, and if we like it, we may take it to air. So if you're not familiar with Storify, we've got a quick video right here that's going to help you understand how you can do what we do and share it with us.
Storify is a narrative tool for the social media age. Log in with your Twitter account. Search what people are saying on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, pretty much anywhere on the web. Then rearrange them any way you like. Add your own explanations and thoughts, and publish your story for the world to see. Share those stories with us, and they, and you, might just wind up in the stream.
Now, in Tunisia, there are fears that the country could return to internet censorship as a battle over blocking pornographic websites escalates. Now, last month, a judge ordered Tunisia's internet agency, known as ATI, to block all X-rated websites. The ATI tried to get a stay order on the ruling, but was denied by another court. Well, supporters of the court's decision say it protects Islamic morals, while critics argue that the judiciary has no right to police morality. Let's have a look at one of the protests that took place in Tunisia against media censorship. This one earlier in the year, demonstrating in support of freedom of information. As I understand, these gentlemen were all journalists. And that just gives you, an idea that this was on the agenda. It was a part of the revolution that was taking place in Tunisia, and they saw it part and parcel with their freedoms and their general lack of democracy as they ousted Zain al-Abidine bin Ali, who's been, by the way, sentenced to 35 years, if I'm not mistaken, in absentia while he's in Saudi Arabia. We're trying to get a guest, Riyad Guerfali from Tunisia, to join us. I'm just going to ask the gallery if he's ready. He's not ready yet. So let's get Natasha's thoughts while they hook up Riyad on Skype. It seems to be a bit more than a ban on pornography from the perspective of the critics and those who feel this is a slippery slope towards general censorship.
Well, absolutely, but initially my problem with this story is that Tunisia sort of was the starting place for all these Middle Eastern, North African uprisings. And then we haven't heard about Tunisia for the past few months. And so the only story that props up is this issue about pornography websites being banned. It's kind of like a non-issue. But it is a gateway to a bigger problem of censorship. I mean, they're talking about the social morality of the country. Again, this is an issue of who's going to decide what the social morality is. In a democratic society, you vote for these things. I don't want judges and internet observation bodies saying, yep, all of this is going to be banned. In a free and liberal society, you have access to this. Even if you personally find it offensive, the access has to be there.
You know, Imran, it's interesting because there's one man in particular who we've been speaking to today on Twitter who actually really illuminates the kind of bigger question. As you said, we haven't heard from Twitter in a while. I'm just quickly going to mention the fact that it's this Minister of Youth and Sports in Tunisia who was formerly an activist and who has now resigned. And the reason he resigned, as you can see right here in one of the tweets that we've been discussing with him, was that the most criticism he got as Secretary of State for the Youth and Sports was for publicly adopting a position against this censorship of pornography. So I think we have our guest.
Yeah, we have Riyad. Let's go to Riyad so we can squeeze him as much as possible until the end of the program. We only have about 5 minutes left. Riyad Guerfali, thanks a lot for joining us via Skype. It seems as if the connection is good. That's good news for all of us. Let's just paint the scene here. You have a president who's been sentenced in absentia after, 23 years in power. The priorities of the new Tunisian government or the Tunisian people. Let's look at the priorities. You want to resurrect the economy. You want to get rid of corruption. You want to find justice for those who faced abuses, human rights abuses during the Ben Ali regime. With all of this in mind, is making a fuss about a potential ban on pornography really a priority now for the Tunisian people?
Now, please, first, hello and thank you for inviting me. It is, I think, extremely important to say this. The problem is not pornography. The problem is the way things are done. I mean, for me and my friends from Nawat.org and the other Tunisian activists, I mean, the judgment, what did the judgment? The judgment gave the power to the administration to censor in a block generally sites that they don't know what even their URL. And that is the great problem. I mean, all over the world, we can have sites that are outlaws, and we ask to censor them directly. But not in any democratic country it is acceptable that any judge ask the administration and tell her, okay, you can censor what you think it is pornography, it is against the moral, etc. I mean, sure, in Western country, in some democracy, I mean, yeah, there are some sites that are censored, but that sites are censored with the URL.
Okay, Riyad, I want to read you something from one of the conservative lawyers who brought the case to court, who claim that this is not about a slippery slope to censoring other things and censoring human rights. He said they were targeting porn specifically, and let me quote him. This is lawyer Munaim Turki. He said, these pornographic sites have negative effects on the psychological, physiological, social and educational level on individuals, and they go against the values of Arab Islamic society. I mean,
I've been with him.
Doesn't he make a fair point that he might be saying something that reflects the popular will of most Tunisians?
No, please, and for all those who are listening to us, I've been this afternoon with the person you quoted, and please, one more time, the question is not that. The question is not pornography. And this afternoon I was talking about the pedopornography. I mean, the pornography where we see our children, and I said, this is the worst what a human being can do. And all of us, we reject that. The problem is not that. One more time, the problem is not pornography. The problem is not the moral. The problem is a principle. I mean, we cannot, it's unacceptable to give the power to the administration to censor without any control. That's the question. I mean, this is what happened. I mean, what happened? The judge asked the administration to censor what is pornographic, etc. But we cannot control it. That's the problem.
Okay, Riyad, Ahmed wants to jump in with a very quick question because we have to wrap up soon.
Yeah, we're wrapping up, so I'm not going to go with a question, but Hamam Itsu is saying, and I think just a quick comment from you would be good on this. He says, what I love about Tunisia is blocking porn is that it's an example of how we shouldn't follow the West with blind eyes. Porn, not democracy.
No, I'm sorry. Even for the West, please, one more time, I hope people will understand. Even in Western country, when they block sites, they never, ever block sites. I mean, entirely without any URL list. Well, please, you must understand that.
Very quickly, Riyad, you know, we have Salim Amamou who's saying at the end of one of his tweets to us, that it's really an intrusion. It's about an intrusion in personal freedom.
I mean, I respect, of course. I respect my friend Slim's opinion, of course. I mean, he's right when he said that. But one more time, we didn't even reach at that point. The problem, one more time, please understand this. It's a principal question. I mean, we cannot ask any administration in any democratic country to censor.
Riyad, we admire your exuberance and your passion, and you've made your point. Thank you very much for joining us on the stream. Great to talk to you. We look forward to following up with this story. Riyad Guerfali there. Ahmed, stay where you are. Natasha, thanks a lot for your appearance on the TV show. You're going to stay with us for the post-show online, stream.aljazeera.com. For those of you watching the TV show, thanks for watching. See you soon. Hello and welcome to the post show on stream.aljazeera.com. I'm Imran Gabda, once again sitting in for Derek Ashong. He's the guy who's a little bit better looking, a bit more articulate, and can do this job a bit better than me. However, you have to endure with me, what can I say, for the next 10 to 15 minutes. Ahmed and Natasha are with us. Our guest on air just now, Riyad, so passionate, trying to, explicitly reiterate the point that this is not about porn, and that according to his knowledge of the way things work in Tunisia, he sees this as an opening to censorship. Natasha, were you convinced by his argument?
Absolutely. I think what he's saying is spot on. You can't have this kind of censorship. If you're going to have freedom, you must give that freedom fully. And that quote that you pulled up by the lawyer about the psychological and physiological damage that pornography causes, I urge those folks, and analysts would urge, that perhaps websites that promote Al-Qaeda or Islamist hardliners or armed jihad cause more problems for Arab and Islamic culture than pornography. This is about, once again, sexual repression of young men, which is completely unnecessary and does a lot of damage.
Ahmed, our Twitter page was on fire during those 5 minutes. Give us some insight.
Yeah, it's interesting. Gillian C. York's been on our show before, but a lot of other people have echoed a point that she's making. And one of the points is she's kind of a continuation of the point that Riyad was making, that instituting a system to block pornography, it's not about pornography because it creates a slippery slope, as she says, that easily allows for further blocking. A lot of people were sending us various Facebook pages that, link to Anonymous's role. We don't want to forget about Anonymous, the loose collective that's been playing a role. As you can say, they're saying they're not afraid to stand up. And in this, I must use the word cute little graphic saying, we're here, you should have expected us. Saying that they you said we haven't heard about Tunisia in a long time, but Anonymous is there rallying for the freedom of someone named Samir Feriani, who has been jailed for similar reasons of, internet net freedom.
This is also kind of Machiavellian in the sense that it's not a parade or a sporting event, but you detract attention from the real issues. Is there stability? Is there democracy? Is there food on people's table? Do they have roofs over their heads? Do they have real opportunities? You kind of veer them away from what they really have to think about and say, oh, let's everyone focus on pornography. It's a non-issue. It doesn't matter.
And something that I'd like to mention, before we bring in, and we've got another guest on the post show, before we bring her in, I've not been to Tunisia, but in many of the countries that I've been to in the Arab world, pre-traveling with a laptop days, going to internet cafes in countries where pornography is actually blocked. Pornography is completely blocked in these countries. They have stringent filters. But you go to internet cafes in certain countries, and 9 times out of 10, the guy to your right and the guy to your left and the guy in front and the guy at the back is browsing a porn site. So in that sense, blocking it may not take away the appetite. It might.
No,
the beauty or the tragedy or whatever you want to call it, of the internet is that you can always circumvent, whatever it is that's being blocked, and that's why the UN went ahead and declared, whenever, a government is collectively preventing people from accessing information online, it's a violation of human rights. But just quickly, maybe they were using one of these sites right here. I will not say that I used it, but in the Arab world, I don't know if you could see it, Cheese Camera is one of many sites that you can use to access sites that otherwise might be blocked. It says right here, I'm going to blow it up, unless this is illicit activity that I'm doing right now.
Purely for Ahmed's research purposes.
Right,
us folks from the developing world, we're industrious. We're used to working around the system, so I'm sure guys in Tunisia will find a way.
Let me introduce our additional guest to the post show, Rosabel Kagumire. Thank you very much. She's a regular contributor to the stream. Nice to meet you. Please take a seat. Where's Rosabel going to sit? Is she going to sit here or on the couch? Take a seat on the couch next to Natasha. Rosabel Kagumire from Uganda. I had the pleasure of going to your country about 6 years ago. Beautiful country. I was in Kampala. I went up to Jinja as well. And I love Uganda. It's a beautiful place. Great to have you on the stream. How's the transition been from being in the screen to the couch?
It's awesome.
It's great. We've been talking to you for months, first on Twitter, then on Skype, and now here.
Yes, it's really awesome.
What's going to be the next transition? Are you going to turn 4-dimensional or something?
See about how it goes.
Rosabel, just for the sake of our online viewers watching the post show now, remind us in a nutshell about your expertise and the things that you're passionate about.
I'm a Ugandan journalist. I'm a multimedia journalist in Uganda, and I use a lot of internet. I've been in DC on an internet freedom fellowship with the State Department. We're looking at how to promote internet freedom in Africa and East Africa specifically. So I'm working on a project back home with a couple of charities to bring about voices of journalists from South Sudan. As you know, they are going to have a country in a few days, and we rarely hear about a South Sudanese journalist. So we need these voices, Sudanese people speaking for themselves. So I'm working on an internet project that will be bringing voices of South Sudanese journalists. Then beyond journalists, we'll bring South Sudanese on the project to blog and use the internet.
Is there a social media crackdown in Uganda and in southern Sudan the way that we're sort of experiencing in other parts of the world?
In Sudan and Uganda are totally different, because in Sudan the access is very limited and the government has so many problems to deal with and come to crack down on the internet. But in Uganda we have had protests in the last few months, and we saw our government coming up and giving directives for to the internet service providers that they should block Facebook and Twitter, which they did not do. We don't know exactly who prevented that from happening, but we are sort of on the lookout that any big thing that happens, our government can easily come up and block us.
Well, you know, this is kind of for me, like, you know, someone who's been following the story on the stream, and you being a part of that story. And for all of us here at the stream, you know, right here on this monitor, we have your face right there. I don't know if you can see it, because you were our source on the ground. And now that you're here, maybe you can update us on this walk to work story, which was about, as you know, probably I'll let you explain it. But what's going on now in terms of, like, you know, the food costs and the people's dissent and their dissatisfaction with the government? What's going on?
The dissatisfaction is still there, and we have seen who was the leader of the opposition actually came to the States and stayed for treatment because he had been badly injured during the arrest. Kizza Besigye, and he was badly injured. So he kind of, we've seen the discontent is still there, but the momentum has kind of gone down. But now the major issues is that we have a new parliament sitting in. We have laws that are being suggested to bring in, and one of the most controversial laws right now is the law on bail. Our president said that you have to deny bail to people suspected of rape, to people suspected of rioting. So that means he's cracking down. He's using a bail to come down on freedom of expression. And the larger crime was, he said that we should deny bail people who are suspects of economic saboteurs. Him alone knows what economic saboteurs mean. The whole of Uganda don't understand what he's trying to mean, and he's bringing this law to the parliament, and people are worried that this is going to be the law that will be getting journalists, if you write a story that maybe affects tourism in Uganda, you can find yourself in jail. If you're
so for you, in your situation, I mean, obviously you're critical of the government. Do you ever fear then in that situation that you might be?
We still have some space where we can speak for sure. We can say it's absolutely, but we have seen journalists being. You were taken to jail. A friend of mine, Timothy Karyegira, went to jail the other day because he wrote an opinion about last year's bombings, July 11th bombings. He said that he was not sure that the Al-Shabaab had done these bombings, that the government surely had something. That was his opinion, and he's being jailed because of that. He was given bail, but he has a case to answer. This is all about freedom of expression, that I can express an opinion that is not mainstream.
Has the president, Museveni, tried to harness the power of the social media and social networking? Does he have an official Facebook fan page? Does he use Twitter, etc.?
He had a fan page which was full of abuses then. But then he's on Twitter, but he does not really use it. We only see a few speeches once in a while, so it's not.
It's a really interesting question. Sorry, forgive me for interrupting. I know we have so little time. I want to really maximize our time with you. You know, we've seen President Zuma, everybody in South Africa, lots of people in Kenya, Kenyatta, I'm not sure if you're familiar. Everyone are making use of these tools, and often, instead of just cracking down, governments can actually use these tools to their benefit. So it's not happening, as Imran asked.
It's not happening. As far as I'm concerned, President Museveni, he's been in power for 25 years. So he sees himself as the people that support him are the rural people. So he doesn't see internet as an opportunity for him to, yet we have a big youth percentage. Like 50% of Ugandans are less than 30 years old, So, but still he uses the rural setting. I'm a peasant, therefore I represent peasants. So I think that prevents him from seeing the growing power of the youth. And that's so where the battle is going to be. And because his opposition are quite young people who are always on the internet. Norbert Mao is one of the most famous ones among the young youth in Uganda. And he's on the internet, and he's popular because of that, because he communicates every day what he's up to, what he's meeting, when to.
And does the average person, the average middle-class person in Uganda, are they using social media? Are they getting involved and informed?
We have seen a growth in the use of social media because of the protests and because of the election. You remember, we had 33 million people, and 3 million only use the internet. But as the mobile phone penetration goes on, more people are coming onto the internet. We have 10 million people who have mobile phones. So we are seeing this growing, and in the coming 5 years or 3 years, the internet is going to expand. Access voices, and this will in the end affect how people use the social media.
Okay, Rosabelle, it's been a great pleasure having you on the couch finally after being in that little box for so long. We hope you can contribute more to us, not only regarding Uganda, but East Africa in general and Africa in beyond. Good luck with everything you're doing.
Thank you so much.
In DC, thanks for joining us on the stream. Natasha, thanks once again. Is this your last one with us?
Not
no.
ever.
Well, are you back tomorrow?
No, I'm not.
Well, you're not back tomorrow.
tomorrow.
For the time being, it's not your last one for us. Natasha, Fatah, thanks a lot. And Ahmed, once again,
it's been
thanks
fun.
for this. I'll see you tomorrow. Derek Ashong is making an appearance tomorrow from Jerusalem. We look forward to that. We'll see you then. Bye.